There were no witnesses. Whatever it was you did this morning, nobody saw it. There was no thank you, no acknowledgement, and by lunchtime, you had already forgotten it happened. Please give me your full attention for about 90 seconds, chosen one. What I'm about to say will sound too big for what you did, and I need you to stick with me after that. It was not big. I know it wasn't big. It could have been 4 seconds long. Sometimes you could do both the harder and easier things at the same time. The easier one didn't cost anything, wouldn't hurt anyone, and there was no chance that anyone would ever find out. You chose the harder one anyway, for no reason other than showing what kind of person you are when you're not tired. You are already reaching for a word, so I have to take it away from you before we go any further. That's what you're about to call kind, rude, or something that anyone would have done. Picked. Don't do that yet, because that word is what has kept you from realizing what happened. You did something bad this morning. It was an exact number. This is what I mean. This is where the message stops being encouraging and starts being about how things work. How you act around other people shows what you're trying to do. How you act when no one is watching you tests your material. They are two very different instruments, and you can only trust one of them. This is the reason why most of the important tests in your life have not been in public. They can happen in the car, the kitchen at 6 a.m., or just before you answer a message you don't want to answer. This part changes everything. There is an old file on you. A long time ago, on one of the worst days of a season you haven't talked about much, it was written. You were put to the test that day. And you broke the way any person would have broken. It also said how much you could carry. And that number has never been changed. It has been used to figure out every plan for your life since then. You've hit every ceiling and couldn't figure out why. Every chance that almost came your way but didn't was not a rejection. It was a correct calculation based on old information. It changed this morning in 4 seconds, and no one was watching. And when the inputs change, everything that was built on the old inputs needs to be thrown away, not cancelled. Cancelled in the same way that a builder can cancel a foundation plan for a smaller building when the actual sizes are known. That's what's going on in your life right now. That's why the last few days have felt off, like the furniture in a room has been moved half an inch, and you can't tell what changed. Let me warn you now about the next few days. I want you to hear this before it starts. You're going to say something that tries to fix this. It has 4 or 5 words. You've said it 1,000,000 times. Not being humble, even though it sounds like it. When someone sees something good in you, it will happen right away. It's the most expensive habit people like you have. In a minute, I'll say the name of that sentence out loud, so you can hear it when it starts again. I need to show you the file first, though. What was written in it, when it was written, and the one thing that needs to happen for that number to change for good, instead of just changing for a week, and then going back to where it was. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description, or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site, you are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give, and it will be given to you, is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose, join the conversation, and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today, join our community, and see what God brings back into your life. Come with me. There is no message here about being liked. This message is about being looked at again. One more thing before we go down, because I want it to be in the room with us the whole time. It's not just what you get that changes during a recalibration. It changes how people think of you. For the group you are being moved into, there is a word, and it's not the one chosen. The group is chosen one. This is the exact entry. If I said it now, you would argue with it, but by the end, you won't be able to. I've known it since the beginning of my speech. But I'm going to hold it until the last sentence. You will get 3 things before this is over. The first one is getting it. Tonight, you will see the exact way that someone can do everything right for years and still be judged at the same level as their worst week. You will also be able to name specific times in your own life when this happens. The second will make you feel instead of think. There is a piece of evidence about you that you have refused to take into account for a very long time. I'm also going to make you count it at one point in this message. You will not like that, and it will only last a short time. The third one is a tool. You can do these 4 steps in less than 3 minutes every night for the rest of your life. And it only has one purpose. That way you don't erase your own record faster than it can be written. What I want to do first, though, is give you something right away. You shouldn't have to wait for a stranger to prove their worth before they give you something. Let me tell you something you've felt for years, but never put into words. When someone compliments you, you feel a certain way. There is a brief feeling of warmth when someone compliments you, and then something closes. But not modesty, a door. You then say something to take the attention off of yourself, and when the compliment comes about a minute later, you feel a little flat, because you feel like you have never connected with it. Most people who go through this think that the person is either very humble or lacks confidence. Both of these ideas are wrong, and I can show you one of them right now. This kind of person wants praise but doesn't believe it. It's not what you want. There is a difference, and that's the whole point. I can only show you half of the mechanism right now. The full version will come later, when I can do it right. Thanksgiving makes a record, and a record makes an expectation. At some point in your past, that expectation hurt you. People didn't check on you if they thought you were strong. Being seen as capable meant that more work had to be done. If people thought you had everything together, you could never fall apart. Not once. Not even the year you were supposed to. You learned how to stop the record before it starts, which shows how smart you are. Out of fear, not because they are humble. That defense worked too. That's why it's still going. It kept the load strong for years. But it has one terrible side effect. And that's why this message was sent. If a person deletes their own record, they can't be checked again. Nothing on file needs to be looked over again with chosen one. That's why what happened this morning is so important. It took place somewhere the defense couldn't get to. No one was there to give you praise. That means there was nothing to block. For the first time in a long time, the evidence was found to be clean. And I want to write this down because moments like this deserve to be written down. If the compliment thing made you think of yourself, or if you felt the door close as I talked about it, then write 2 words below this message. Writing is important. Not because writing it down changes anything, but because saying it out loud is the first thing you have to do to not delete your own record. And because thousands of people are reading those words tonight, who have been erasing their names for years, because they thought they were being modest. 2 words are used, then come back, because I need to show you the file next. This is the file. And I want to start with the symptom instead of the theory, because it only takes 30 seconds to check the symptom against your own life. You keep getting to a level but can't pass it. It's not always the same thing that happens. A different job, a different relationship, a new chance, and a different city. They are the same height, though. If you lay them next to each other, you get near. There is a change. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history, it is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. You're left right where you started when it's over. Every single time. There is a perfectly good reason for it. Plus, each explanation is unique, which is why you have never seen the pattern. Several things have been said to you about that. It's time, as you were told. Someone told you that you don't know something yet. You've been told in some rooms that people are out to get you, and that framing is especially cruel, because it makes your life feel like it's under attack. You will never win if you work harder. You have also told yourself the worst version of yourself, usually late at night. That people can sense something about you that makes them almost choose someone else. That's all wrong. This is what is really happening. There was a time in your past when you were put through more than you could handle, and you broke apart. Not in a big way. A collapse is not always what people think of when they think of it. It seems like a time when you stopped answering messages, did the bare minimum, and pretended to be fine with everyone. You didn't finish something you said you would, and you didn't explain why, and no one asked you about it. You know just what season I'm talking about. It was found about 4 seconds ago. Someone checked to see how much weight you could carry on that day or during that season. Also, please pay attention to this part, because it makes everything else possible. The evaluation was correct. It wasn't unfair. That day, with the structure you had in place at that time, it wasn't a lie about you. That really was the number. Whatever was being thought about for you would have killed you if it had come true that year, but something stopped it. And not giving it was not a punishment. It was for safety. You would also call that person if you loved them. I'm going to name this because things that don't have names go on forever. It is what I call the breaking day entry. If you have a breaking day entry, it shows your exact capacity at the lowest point in your structure's history. This number becomes the standing figure, because it was never officially replaced. It's not a curse or an accusation. It's an old number that's still in use, and now look at what it says. It explains why the ceiling stays the same in parts of your life that have nothing to do with each other. A curse would be aimed at, a weakness would be clear. Standing capacity is a general term for what you've been feeling, but couldn't put your finger on it. That's why the close calls feel like they were planned. They're not meant to hurt you. They are worked out. A number is being used to measure something. The number says, not this much. So the thing stops just short every time in every domain. It indicates that the people who got ahead of you were not more skilled. They were evaluated not long ago. That's the only difference. I know how that ends, and I'll tell you what to do. Another strange thing it explains is why the outside of you hasn't changed much over the last few years, even though you've grown inside. It feels like proof that growth doesn't matter, which is what has broken more honest people than almost anything else. In fact, it's the opposite. This means that growth has been going on behind the scenes. Now read your last 10 years again with that in mind. You were never turned down as a person, even when you were passed over. It was fair to compare you to an entry you made on the worst day of your life. Sometimes you felt like other people could tell something was wrong with you, but there was nothing wrong. Someone saw an old figure, but old figures can't be seen by anyone, not even you. It wasn't a waste of time every time you quietly rebuilt yourself, and nothing changed around you. You were gathering a huge amount of evidence that wasn't being recorded. You, the chosen one, have worked hard for years to get a promotion that the system wasn't turning down. It was just using a number that hadn't been changed. So the question isn't how can I get heaven to agree with me? How does an entry get changed? That's the question. Of course there is an answer, and it is very specific. It comes with one condition that explains everything about your life. Performance can't be used instead of an entry. That is what must happen. When you know you are being graded, you do your best work. And anything done in the knowledge of assessment tests readiness, it's what makes a load test different from a practice run. In a rehearsal, everyone does a good job. That's why there's a practice. There is only one way for an unobserved event to replace a capacity figure in real life, where the cost is real, the choice is real. And there is no benefit at all to making the right choice. That means they can never say when the retest will be. It wouldn't be a test if you knew it was one. Picked. Do you know what that means for your life? In other words, every normal morning for the past few years has been potentially heavy. It means that the only things that could have changed the number were the ones that you did that didn't feel like they made a difference, were invisible, or went anywhere. What this means is that the only thing that counts is the thing that doesn't look like it counts. This is why nothing seemed to be happening. One more thing it means. I want you to hold this one. You've probably already passed a few of these. Not just once, several times. Every time it happened, you did something that erased most of the memory. Yes, I will name that sentence for you as promised. I will do it very soon. But first, here's something you can do tonight for free. That will only take 4 minutes. In the past week, think of something you did that no one else did. That didn't help you, and that could have been done more easily. Do not pick the one that looks the best. Pick a small one and write it down without any adjectives at all. Not that I was patient with her, that would be an opinion. It's just a fact. 2 hours were spent on the phone. What I meant to say did not come out. This is the only form of facts that your defense can't get rid of, since there's nothing to argue within them. When you do that once, you'll have a record. If you do it 7 nights in a row, you will have something you have never had before. I'll show you how to use it in the next part of this message. I'm going to stop now and put something in front of you because it belongs here, and I don't want to hide it at the end. In the last few decades, something important about the mind was found in research labs that almost no one in the spiritual world has heard. This is related to what we are talking about. Not because it goes against something holy, but because it came from a direction we aren't looking at. A small group of neuroscientists, building on a discovery that was so important it won the Nobel Prize, found something about the physical design of the mind that explains something that spiritually sensitive people talk about all the time, but can't put their finger on. It's not a way of life. It is built up. It has to do with the actual state of the gear you use to record. Yes, record with. You have been told that your evidence has not been written down, and I have been explaining the emotional reason for that. That is why I am bringing it up now instead of later. Another reason has to do with the body, and can be measured. It explains why some people can keep a clear account of their life while others, no matter how hard they try, have trouble doing so. Before the end of this message, I'll tell you exactly what they found. Promise. Put this question on hold for now. If the defense tells you why you delete the record, then why can't you remember it when no one else deletes anything? Since those are two different fails, there is a refusal and a leak. Hold on to that. We're going to look at it again, because the file has something else that isn't a number. As a category, it is. You are about to enter your divine future. But remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit Community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary, where we discuss the Word daily, and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give, and heaven will open over you." On this platform, every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall, share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit our community now, join the family, and see your heavens open. Before it can answer any other question, every plan that is made for someone has to answer the first one. It's not how much that matters. What is it for? A life can get resources in two ways. And making them confusing has made honest people feel more hopeless than almost anything else I know of. The first way is to receive. A recipient is given based on what is needed. What comes in is compared to what needs to be done. And the supply stops when the need is met, because that's what accuracy looks like. There is no waste, there is no short. And the person who gets it can live a good life after that. There is also no shame in it at all. As a carrier is the second way. There isn't enough of a carrier to go around. Depending on throughput, a carrier is sent. In other words, the amount is based on what needs to go through them to get to other people. Furthermore, that number has nothing to do with what the carrier actually needs. This is why I'm telling you this. You've been filed as a recipient all your adult life, and I can show you from your own life in one sentence. You've had just enough all along, not too much or too little. That's enough. Every time the money came in, it paid for everything and left nothing over. The energy didn't last an extra hour after the job was done. Every year, the help showed up at the very last minute, and in exactly the right amount. I know what you told yourself about that, because everyone does. It's what you call faithfulness. God always makes a way. That is true and real. I'm not taking it from you either. You have never said it out loud though. I'm going to say it for you. It's felt like it was being led. Not having any margin at all makes you feel very alone. Being met with enough and never having too much, seeing provision arrive so precisely, makes it feel less like generosity and more like rationing. And you've never told anyone that because it sounds like you're not thankful. And you haven't been able to say it in a way that doesn't sound like you're happy with how things are going. Chosen one, you weren't being limited. You were correctly supplied based on a classification, and that classification was recipient. That classification was based on the same old entry we've been talking about. The carrier line is what I want to call this one too. At the carrier line, the math stops caring about you. All of the items you get below the line are the right size for you. What you receive above it is the right size for what needs to move through you. You can always get more than you need. You don't own the extra money, and it's not meant to be yours. And it's not a test of how kind you are. It's freight, and a recalibration isn't just an increase. It is a change in classification. That's what makes it so confusing. That's why the title of what you're hearing today says, Heaven is recalibrating, instead of Heaven is blessing, because the old plan doesn't get bigger when a category changes. It's called off. It is not possible to turn a plan made for a recipient into a plan for a carrier. The structure is different, the time is different, and so are the people who are involved. You've been feeling like everything has to be drawn over from scratch for a few days. Now that the furniture has moved an inch, without anyone telling you why. Now I'll tell you the hardest part of a reclassification. If you don't know this, you will get it wrong for the next 3 weeks. There's a hole. The old plan will end first. The new one comes out second. And there's a time when you don't have either, so it doesn't feel like a promotion. It seems like the silence came just as you thought something was going to start. That gap is where most people decide they were wrong. They thought something was changing, but it was just a feeling. They got their hopes up again, even though they should have known better. A lot of people give up on the process 11 days before the new deal comes out. And then they tell themselves for years that nothing ever happens to them. And the sad thing is that they were right about everything except the time picked. If the past week has felt like a cancellation, don't take that to mean that you were canceled. Think of it as someone giving up on a plan that wasn't big enough after getting better information. I'm going to mark this because this is an important moment. If you know what enough is and have lived your whole life meeting exact needs and never going over, then write 3 words below this message. Type on top of the line, not as a request, but as a description of where you are being moved. The two are not the same. And everything about the next season will depend on which one you talk about. I will now name the sentence. In the beginning, I told you that there is a 4 or 5-word sentence you can say that will fix what went wrong this morning. It's here. There was nothing or something like it. It's not a big deal. It could have been anyone. I did what I needed to do. You like one. This week, you said it. And I want to be very careful, because I don't want to accuse you of being too modest. That's not what this is. A bad way to deal with this issue has been to treat it as a character issue for generations. It's really a withdrawal, that sentence. This is the exact mechanism. Evidence has to be kept until it can be filed. It can't be shared or made public before it is held. While something is happening, it usually only takes a few seconds for it to become a part of who you are. That sentence lands in the window and takes the thing away before it settles. You're not being humble. For years now, you have been deleting your own file in real time several times a week. Why would someone do that? For the reasons I already gave. Because something in your history set an expectation. And what cost you was an expectation. But there's something else that's even more important, that almost no one says out loud. It can be taken if it counts. A good thing that hasn't been recorded can't let you down. You won't have to deal with the day someone tells you it wasn't enough if you never let it count. Taking something away is not modesty or low self-worth. It is a safety net. You have paid a premium for it your whole adult life, and that premium is on file with you. Picked. I want to know how much that cost. You made, and then deleted every entry that would have replaced the breaking day number thousands of times, over more than a decade, taking about 4 seconds to do each one. That's why the number hasn't changed. Not because you failed the tests, but because you did well on them, and then deleted the results. I want to give you a word that means something different, because it changes the picture. This is the oldest language used in the scriptures. The verb pakad means to visit in English. God came to see her. He went to see his people. Whenever we hear that, we picture a guest coming over, someone stopping by, or a friendly face for the afternoon. That's not what park means. Part is a word used in accounting. It means to look over, make a list of, or count what is actually there, and then make appointments based on that list. When a commander put his troops on pads, he gave each one a number, and told them what they were responsible for based on that number. So whenever you read that God visited someone, what really happened was an audit, an account, or a reassessment, followed right away by an assignment. Almost every time in the text, the next assignment was bigger than what the person was carrying before. And almost every time, the person argued with it right away. That brings me to a man using a wine press to thresh wheat. You don't thresh wheat in a wine press. The chaff is blown away by the wind when wheat is threshed outside. Raiders were in the area, so he did it badly and in secret down in a stone pit. He was hiding his food. And someone in the pit called him a brave and powerful man, while he was working. Now look at how no one else in the story is confused about the difference but him. He wasn't doing anything brave. He ran away. He was scared. And he was right to be scared. The description didn't match a single thing that could be seen in the scene. That's because nothing was said about him. He was being moved up in the ranks. His first response, without any pause, was, "My clan is the weakest. I am the least in my house. Look at where I am and what I am doing." He deleted the entry in real time, just like you do. And the answer he got didn't disagree with any of his proof. It just did the assignment again. Picked. That's how it works. You're in it now. You are being talked to by a file you haven't seen using a category you wouldn't normally use while you are objectively tired, and in the middle of a task you don't think is very impressive. And the way you responded to what I said in the first 2 minutes of this message was probably the weakest version of my clan. Let me take you somewhere for a little while. Think back to a Tuesday in the year 2000. There was nothing special about the day, but by that time, something had come into your life that was extra. You don't need all of it. That's the first time that's ever been true. Pay attention to what you do with that picture. You're not keeping it for yourself. Most people do the same thing the first time, which is to freak out. Because someone who has been trained over decades of exact provision often sees extra as a mistake that needs to be fixed. It's being moved. Some of it goes somewhere before you can fully understand that it got there. There's no need to be afraid to do that, because by that time you no longer see supply as something that is limited, but as something that is passing through. And the difference between those two experiences is the difference between living an open life and a braced life. Take a slow breath there. That version of yourself is real. You can think of it as what comes after a reclassification. And reclassifications happen when there is a record of them. Take a moment to remember that you are still here. A lot of people aren't. Something inside you knew this was yours around minute 4 and hasn't let go since. And that kind of recognition isn't a mood. It's records. This is the third spot I want you to mark. This one isn't about seeing either. It has to do with stopping the deletion. When did you last say it was nothing? You know the event. That's not what you should say in the comments section below this message. Use simple facts and no adjectives. After that, write 4 things. For the refusal to happen inside the sentence, write, I am not deleting this, not I will stop, I am not deleting this present tense. Leave it alone. Tonight, someone will read yours and see for the first time in their life how they erased something. Finally, the question I asked you to think about. I want to warn you that this is the most important thing I will say today. If the defense tells you why you delete the record, then why can't you remember it when no one else deletes anything? You see, those are 2 different failures. If I stopped at the first one, I would be giving you half a key and calling it a key. It will only take you 10 seconds to check that what I said about the second failure is correct. Right now, think of 3 good things you did last month. They weren't accomplishments, they were just things you did well. Most people are blank, not humble. Blank. You can't get anything from that place. Right now, think of 3 things you did badly in the last month. They show up right away, with dialogue, body language, and the exact time of day written on their faces. That lack of balance is not a sign of who you are. And you are not being too hard on yourself. Also, it's not just that hard things are easier to remember. That would also be true for good things that are just as hard, which it's not. You've been told it's bad vibes. There was a list that you couldn't feel when you practiced gratitude, even though you were told to do so. People have told you that you should forget about yourself in a spiritual sense. This teaching has been used to keep honest people from ever writing an accurate account of their lives. All of that misses the point of what is happening, which is one of the strangest and most important things that has ever been found about the mind. Your mind isn't just one thing. It has 2 parts, but they were made to work together. A body of research on this was so important that it won the Nobel Prize in the early 1980s. Somebody named Dr. Roger Sperry was in charge of the project. Furthermore, it was found in a lab setting, rather than a religious one, that the 2 halves of the human mind have very different functions, and that the quality of life depends on how well those two halves communicate with each other. This is why that's important. For everything we've talked about so far, experience is one side. On the other side live language, order, and keeping records. Until it passes, an event is not a memory that you can call up whenever you want. It needs to be felt on one side and filed on the other. The crossing doesn't happen by itself. For it to happen, the two halves must be in sync at the same time. Life records itself when they are in sync. It's possible to remember both what you did and how it felt at the same time. Insight comes all at once. You don't have to just sense something, you can say it. When they're not, you get what you're given. Things that happen to you don't change how you see yourself. You feel things that you can't explain. You keep giving evidence but don't remember much of it. And hard things happen anyway, because stress has its own priority routes. Now you know why your mental file only has a detailed record of all the times you failed and nothing else. You don't have a criminal record, chosen one. You are someone with a leaky one. I need to name this. The split-up house. A house that is split doesn't fall very far. As silently as two floors that can't hear each other fall, leaving the person inside to wonder why nothing builds up. Now comes the part that stopped me the first time I saw it. Studies that test how creative young children are have found that close to 98% of them are creative. Researchers were willing to call this level of skill, genius level, not gifted level. By their own standards, genius level. When the same test is done on adults, the result is less than 1 in 1,000. That's not a story about falling apart. The decline happens slowly and in parts. That story is about turning something off. I'm not going to give you a bad guy either, because there isn't one. This is because almost every part of modern life, from how we are taught to how we are entertained to the sheer amount of noise in our homes, trains the two halves to work separately. You get better at the part that defends and measures. You can't get to the part that senses and puts things together. So the kid who knew things about people before anyone told them, who was sure about how their life would go before there was any proof, and who could remember whole days in color, wasn't naive. Everything there was running at full speed. And it has only had some power for most of your adult life. Sit with what that takes away. When you couldn't think of a single good thing about yourself, and thought that meant there wasn't anything there, you were reading a blacked out instrument as if it were bright. If you tried to keep a record and it was gone in a week, that wasn't a discipline, it was a failure. You were always being asked to force something through a narrow channel when you were told to just believe better about yourself. No matter how much you want it, you can't force it through a valve that is only half open. Chosen one, you are not someone who doesn't have proof. You are someone whose evidence has not been crossing over. You can now see the two failures stacked on top of each other. It's clear why nothing has moved. The half that files is only getting half of its power. This means that most of the record never comes together. And within 4 seconds, the defense gets rid of anything that does form. Almost nothing stays alive between a leak and a deletion protocol. Tonight, you can do something free that briefly puts both halves on the same task. Pick one real thing you did today. Say it out loud using simple words only. At the same time you say it, pay attention to where it makes you feel in your body. And stay there until the sentence is over. That is the whole task. The part that feels and the part that talks are being forced to work together this way. A lot of people are surprised that the thing stays with them the next day. Now take a deep breath. That was a lot. I want to give it some time to settle down before we move on to the last part, because I've noticed something about people who carry a lot that fits here. No one who has time to listen to a real answer almost never asks them a real question. They make a short version of themselves and give it to other people. After a while, even they can't get the long version anymore. That's not being cold. That was made by someone who knew they would never be asked to do it again. And before the last part, I want to tell you the truth about myself. I won't stand far away while I ask you to get close. What's going on with you? That thing you think about at 4 a.m. What's in your bank account tonight? Or what happened in your family this year? I don't know. Some people will say they know something like that about a stranger, but I'm not one of them. Something I have is an old pattern that has worked so well for me that I keep giving it to people. Why do I say that? Because of something that's been sitting in a lot of your minds since minute 6. There is no doubt about it. Skeptics have already left. This is what sounds like what's here instead. Yes, that's probably true about someone else, but not about me, because they don't know what I did, what I didn't do, or what I already had and wasted for the chosen one. Let me get right to the point. It's not moral to judge someone by their capacity. It was never there. It was dark where the man in the wine press was. The person who was told to build the boat, then went out and got drunk. The person who got the biggest assignment in the whole book, killed a man to hide what he did. And the assignment wasn't taken away. Neither because the behavior didn't matter, nor because getting a second chance is a reward for having a clean record. It shows how much capacity there is right now. Because you are running a court in your head, where the verdict is always pending, you keep expecting to be disqualified. And someone who is waiting for a decision can't be moved to a different category, because they are in the wrong room. Nothing is going to happen. The case ended a long time ago, and the letter wasn't sent by anyone. One more room is there. This starts. Someone further down the chain will either get your ledger or your erasure. It could be a kid. It could be someone you've worked with for 9 years. The things they take from you are not your lessons. It's about whether they saw someone who could go for their own record without giving up. Imagine them being 40 years old and able to read an honest word about themselves without deleting it right away. You won't teach them that. They will pick it up from being around you after this changes. Here is the tool. You can do these 4 steps in less than 3 minutes every night for the rest of your life. Join me right now and don't just listen to me explain it. First, something from today. The truth. Don't use adjectives. This time I was patient. What actually took place? There I was. I didn't say anything. I called them. I didn't want to make. Second, to be clear, say it out loud once. Out loud is important because the person who speaks has to hear it. And thinking about it doesn't get it there. Third, and this is the step that everyone skips, don't do it. Find where the truth is in your body while the words are still in the air. It always has a place to sit. The chest, the throat, and the area behind the ribs. Focus on it and hold it for 3 deep breaths. Fourth, say 4 words and mean them as a position, not a wish for something. It matters. It stays. There is no story in that, it is just a ledger, and stories are changed. Entry is what a ledger is. There is nothing modest about a ledger, so a deletion protocol can't argue with it. Do it for 7 nights, and you'll have something in your life that you've never had before, evidence about yourself that made it through contact with you. Also, I want to mark this one because it's the most important. What did you write tonight? Put it in the comments section below this message in simple, factual language, and write 4 words next to it. Write, I receive what is mine. I haven't really called you yet. I've been saying, chosen one, for 40 minutes and it's true. It's the broad category. There is a clear entry in that category that tells you what you were actually graded as. And it's the word I gave you at the beginning. I'd wait until the very end. It's still in my hands. But now we're getting close, and when you hear it, it will explain something about your life that has never had a name. Before that, there was just plain text and no pictures. What do you know now that you didn't know an hour ago? There is a number about your ability that was written on the worst day of your life. It was correct then, but it is not correct now. You can only replace it with evidence that hasn't been seen, which is why the most important tests of your life have never had witnesses. This is because of 2 failures that happened right after each other. The defense deletes it, and the house splits it, so that it's never filed in the first place. Do these things with it. Not a story, but a ledger. Things that are said out loud, found in the body, and when you feel a sentence coming on, stop it in your mouth. And this is who you are in the middle of it all. You are not someone who is waiting to be picked. Your status is being changed, and you are a person. Also, the space you're in is not abandonment. It is the time between a plan that is cancelled and one that is made again. The clarity you just got is real. But being clear has never filed anything on its own. There is one more piece. And it is the one that came from the lab. Do you remember the question I told you to think about at the start? Why does the record get out even though no one deletes it? You asked for the answer, and I told you it came from a lab and won the Nobel Prize. Here's what else I need to say, and why I waited until now. You can only use a solution if you fully understand the issue it attempts to resolve. You now know what the shape is. And in 1981, Dr. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his work that proves something that almost no one in the spiritual community has ever heard. The left and right sides of our brains are designed to work together. The synchronized state is also not a rare or ideal state. It's the condition of the design. It's what the gear is meant to do while you go about your daily life. Researchers who worked with Dr. Sperry found that when a person is in the synchronized state, they can do things that they can't do when they are in the divided state. Language and intuition work together. Experience files on its own. The space between being able to sense something and being able to hold it gets smaller instead of smaller. They also made notes about the other way around. Almost all young children are at that level of synchronized creativity. Not even 1 in 1,000 adults still does. Life today is fast-paced, noisy, and broken up into many small pieces that fall apart over time, making it impossible to pinpoint a single moment. It's not a spiritual failure to do that. It is a fact of physiology. It also means that someone took something from you at a level you were never allowed to reach. And you have spent your whole adult life saying sorry for what happened. Before I go on, let me tell you about 2 people. A woman from California talked about how her life was before all of this. A nurse who had tried all the things her community suggested, like prayer, writing in a journal, and just sitting still in the morning. But she kept ending up in the same place. She thought what they said. She couldn't feel the truth beneath them, not in her body, or in the way her days felt. She said something got better after about 10 days. And the best way she could explain it was like a blocked channel opened up all of a sudden. It wasn't because she worked harder, the receiver had been fixed. A man from Texas talked about something nearby. Someone who had spent years keeping things together for other people while their own life fell apart. He said that prayer felt like talking to a wall. He woke up after 2 weeks and said that his mind was running on all the things it was made to run on. The fog that had been there for so long that he had stopped noticing it was gone. That's because of what neuroscientists in New York, led by Dr. Daniel Barron, worked on for years. It took more than an hour of a clinical whole brain activation protocol, which is used in certain medical settings, to get the two halves of the brain to work together again. They cut it down to an 8-minute targeted audio sequence by compressing and fine-tuning it for a long time. Headphones on, eyes closed for 8 minutes. That's all that's needed physically. The smart switch is what they call it. It's not an app for meditation, and it's not music that's meant to make you feel good. The Genius Switch is a specific sound sequence that was created based on that Nobel Prize research to connect the two hemispheres and get your brain working the way it did when you were a child. And if you've tried other audio in this area and been let down, Dr. Barron talks about that right away. The things that are sold here are mostly aimed at a small part of the picture. He and his team used a multi-layer protocol developed over years of clinical testing to make what they made work to synchronize the two sides of the brain at the whole brain level. Different mechanism, different type of outcome. Let me say something straight out. Not everyone can use the Genius Switch. It's for the chosen one, who just realized they've been gathering evidence for years, but keeping almost none of it. This person has been honest for 10 years, kept picking the right room without anyone else there, and is now ready to stop seeing a leaking record as a character flaw, and start seeing it as something with a specific address. Most people who hear this will move on. They have come to terms with the smaller version of their mind being permanent. At the 40th minute, you are still here. That isn't a mistake. Coworkers who looked it over told Dr. Barron that it would have been a great deal at 500, and they weren't being nice. Neurofeedback that is done in person costs around $300 an hour. A house unit costs about $7. No price was set for it, not 500, not 200, not 100. It cost $49 to buy. On the page where it can be bought there is also an extra 10 off, making the price $39. There are 4 things that are free. Some of the best creators on one of the biggest platforms for calm and sleep have made guided visualizations. A grocery list of 10 common foods that make you feel foggy-headed, along with tips that will save most families over $100 a month. A classic book from more than 100 years ago, about how to attract provision on the inside, along with a printable list of the 5 habits that will help you build the future you really want. It all comes with a money-back guarantee that doesn't matter what. Listen 80 times. If it doesn't work for you like it has for more than 18,000 other people, you can get your money back in full, no questions asked. You also keep the 4 extras. The only reason I'm willing to give you is this, and it has nothing to do with business. Your life is being looked at again. And it's not waiting for your permission. It is up and running. What surface on the other side of it is the right size, not how much you want it. That's how much of the evidence gets written down between now and then. The evidence is not made by a restored receiver. It makes sense now. One thing that needs to be named. You can find tracks on the big music stores, if you look for anything with a name that sounds like the track. They were looked at by Dr. Barron and his team. Most of them don't have any of the technology underneath them at all. It doesn't cost anything to give an audio file a name. The mechanism is what makes the difference, and it's only in one place. The link is only in the description below this message, and the pinned comment, if your spirit agrees with what has been said. Before you decide anything, read the whole page. All of it is laid out clearly. Now for the next thing that needs to be said. The tool doesn't stand in for God. It doesn't take the place of obedience. It also doesn't keep the ledger for you. What is going on in your life has never been dependent on anything else. But what is happening is more like what it was meant to land in, when the receiver has been fixed. That's all it is, and always has been. We are now going back to the deeper part of this message. If anyone felt something move, when the state of the mind was talked about, that door is still open below this message. It's only one step. But small steps taken by someone whose record is no longer being leaked have changed whole seasons. I'm not going to talk about it again. The things that are left belong to something else. You went out of your way to get here. A lot of them didn't. Around the 11th minute, most people stood up. And that doesn't mean anything bad. But the fact that you didn't tell me something tells me something. If someone deletes their own evidence, they probably don't want to talk about it for 40 minutes. You couldn't get rid of something inside you. And the refusal is an entry in and of itself. But I have one thing I want to say last. It's something I said in the first few minutes. If I say that word, something else has to happen first. Because that kind of word can't get to someone who is still deleting. So let's end the same way we began. Take a moment to think about how much of this you have done without anyone seeing. Just to see it, not to be proud of it. When you looked at a wall you built years ago, you never took your eyes off of it. In the mornings, no one knew about it. These were the choices that cost you something, and were never brought up again by anyone. Sometimes you were the only one in the room, but you still did it right. That was all used up. Everything has been going on. Not a single thing has been written down about it. Now put this down for me. It's also not a situation. It's a sentence. It's been with you since you were a child. You can take it from me if it matters. The reason the sentence was taken out is because it had been running your record for a long time, without you having any say in it. Also, it's not true. Important things are not more likely to break than less important things. In a certain season, someone who had every reason to learn it did learn it. It's been a long time since that season. Let it go, not the watch. Feel what changes in your chest when the sentence ends and nothing falls apart. Listen to this and let it sink in. You are being watched. You have been underwritten. You're not behind. You've been carrying a correct number from the wrong day, and now that day is over. You're not getting blessed. You are being looked at again. The second one, reassessment, is much bigger than the first one, because a blessing changes what you get, and being reassessed changes what you can get. You're not looking for attention. You have been added up. This morning, the count crossed a line in 4 seconds while no one was there. Everything after that line needs to be redone. During that sentence, if something in you rose, don't let it stay quiet. Type 4 words in the space below this message. Write, I'm trying to get back on track. During my speech, I thought of a face of someone who has been erasing themselves for as long as you have. Please send this to that person. That's not a favor for me. That's the only way it can get to the right person. That's how it is. It's locked up. It's done now. Just one more thing, and I'll let you go. If your spirit told you earlier that the instrument you are carrying into the next season is in good shape, the path is in the description and the pinned comment. It will still be there tomorrow morning when you are more calm and able to think more clearly. Read the page. Make your choice from a stable spot. That is the only way I would ever let someone choose. Now the word I told you at the start, a recalibration, doesn't just change what you get. That you are put into a different category, and that there is a new entry in that category. And the category is the only one that was picked. It's here. You carry things. That's where the reassessment took you. Not a single recipient was met exactly, and it never got too full. A carrier that is given based on what needs to go through you, and reach people who are not you. That's why you've never been happy with anything small. That's why the exact provision didn't feel comforting but lonely. That's why there were no witnesses at the tests. Freight is never given out based on performance. And that's why this week's plans fell through. They were made for someone, and the file has been read again. Keep the ledger you chose. Note it down. You shouldn't delete anything, because what's coming next isn't going to fit your needs, and never will. If you want God's blessing to flow into your life, like this video, sign up to bring God's prophetic promise and alignment into your life. Share this prophetic word to bring the anointing to life, and then tell your network about your breakthrough. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected, faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment, a place where divine abundance is not just a hope, but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary, where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided e-books and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step. Your abundance awaits.